Hey, it's Patrick here. I don't do a lot of fly tying on camera or in front of people, but I'm going to try to start doing a little bit more of that. So this is a rough first attempt, but if this is something that you want to see more of, let me know in the comments. And also, if there's a certain fly of mine that you're interested in learning about, well, let me know that too. Today I'm going to tie one we call RIO's Prawn Jovi. So this is a steelhead and salmon pattern. I've actually caught more salmon on it than steelhead. It comes from a time when I was fishing a fly called the tippet prawn that is basically a general practitioner style shrimpy fly. I wanted it unweighted, but on a meaty hook, and wanted it to be able to swing way inside in those softer inside turns. So I didn't want it hanging up. I wanted the sink tip to do the work of swinging the fly in. So with that, we'll get into it. So you can see here what hook I've got on it. This is the Daiichi 2151. I'm going to use some 136 denier pink thread. And I'm going to just start this right up here behind the eye. Trim off my excess. And then I'm going to wrap this all the way down just to give myself a base to work off of. And a lot of flies you might stop even with the hook point, but this one I'm going to take it to a point even with the barb. So somewhere, this one goes a little bit further back. All right, somewhere in there will work. So we'll let the thread hang. The first material, I'm going to start off with the wrong thing here, but it's the correct material, the wrong color. I didn't have any more of the UV pink or the UV fuchsia color that I would usually use for this, but this is polar chenille in a UV, and you want that longer length and you want that UV fiber in it. So we're going to tie some in. Normally I said this would be pink or fuchsia. This is going to be a pink and orange fly. So again, we're tying this in even with the hook barb, and then we're going to work our way up to the point here. So this should take, I don't know, about 6 turns or so to get there. That's pretty good. All right, so that just gives us some feelers out there. Remember, this is a prawn, so think shrimp, think prawn. We want feelers and eyes and movement. Okay, so we've got that in there. So next we need those eyes. So we just have some mono and epoxy eyes on it. I like black on this one. So you're going to want to kind of measure either half the width or half the length of your polar chenille, or just take it just past the barb. Either way, that's your distance on the eyes. So I like it just past the, I said barb, but I meant bend of the hook. So we've got one eye in here. We'll get the other eye evened up with that one. You want these to stay up on top of the shank. So just kind of get them into your position that you want, and then we'll force them there. So you can take a wrap behind it. You can bring this one behind it. Start to force them into position. All right. Another thing you can do if you want, if you don't want those to slip out, is once you trim this, is leave a little bit of room there and take a lighter and just kind of ever so slightly melt those ends. And I like to try to get something under it. A razor blade works pretty well, but that way you can put a little melt on the end of those, and then as you wrap forward on it, it can catch against that thread and it's way less likely to slip out. Okay, so we've got our eyes in there. All right, so next up we have some finesse chenille. We're going to use orange for this. And this is going to form essentially the body for your prawn. And if you think about the front part of your prawn, there's a lot more kind of meat to it, if you will. Not the meat we would normally eat, but it's thicker up front. Then in the back, you have all those little kickers underneath. And so we're going to form the body and those with this material. So the way we do that is tie this in, then we're going to move our thread way back up here, and we're going to pack this in really tight up here in the front of the fly, and then we're going to start spacing it out back here, and it's usually about 10 to 6 or 7 on the back, so you'll see. All right, so there's our 10, there's our front part of the fly. Now we're going to spread this out with about 6 or 7. And we'll tie that off. And what that does is it gives that look of feelers back here, if you will. They're not feelers, but swimming devices on the prawn. And but now you can see it's more transparent back here in this part. So denser up front, more transparent in the back. That's a good look for a prawn. All right, so now we're going to want to put stuff on top. So we want to get this stuff off. So you're just going to get your scissors in here, give it a haircut across the top. This will allow our wing to lay down on top of this, and that forms our carapace of this prawn. Okay, so we got that, and let's get some rubber legs in there. So I like this because we got a pink and orange fly. We're going to go with these crazy legs in the pink and orange, and we got 2. So 2 strands. And what we'll do is we will just even those up, and then we're going to bend them around our thread, keep them even so that they're going to be on this fly well, and we're just going to tie them in, and then we're going to slide them off to the sides and under the fly. So you're going to have these 4 strands essentially running underneath the fly, and again, those are like your legs of this prawn kicking around back in there. And you know, a lot of the prawns I fished, shrimp and prawns, where I caught the most steelhead when I was using bait, well, a lot of times was we called them bait divers, but basically a hot shot or a wiggle wart that we'd take the hooks off of, and then we would run, tip it down to a single hook, and we would thread on a sand shrimp. And watching how those lay in the water and how they move in the water was also a lot of inspiration for this, and how this sits and moves in the water. So, you know, we're swinging these on a tight line, and so I wanted it to have that behavior. All right, so these legs are obviously long at this point. So what we'll do is we're just going to bring it up and kind of aim for the end of the eye there, and we'll trim it somewhere in that zone. So then you end up with these that are going to be moving and push off of this, but not really get up in there and foul on the hook. And you got that nice kind of pink and orange hit in there. Okay, so next we want some craft fur. I like this orange because it matches the orange of that finesse pretty well. So I've already trimmed out a piece, but I left the under fur just so I can comb that out. But if you have a little comb or whatever your favorite method is, you just pull that under fur out. Get it fairly clean. Now, this is where we are going to do some measuring. So I want this from my tie-in point to reach not quite 3 inches, so it's 2 3/4 inches out. So grab a ruler or whatever you want to use, and I'm going to look for my measurement. So just before my end here. Another thing that I'll do sometimes is I'll set my little pawn here. If I'm trying to measure something out and I want to remember where to place that, I'll use that pawn and kind of say, well, I want it somewhere even with about that, I think. So it gives me a benchmark of kind of what I'm aiming for there. And so that looks pretty good, somewhere in there. All right, so we'll get that tied in. Now, this is where, if you think about a prawn, shrimp, they have that tail that kicks under, and that's how they swim away from stuff. So that's what this is going to become. So you just want to split this fairly evenly, and if you just kind of push down on it, it'll go around the eye. So then we're just going to get our thread through there, and we're going to keep all that under the fly. That's your tail. Once we have it in place, then we'll secure it with the thread. All right, so that's our tail under there, but it's way too long. So This is 5/8 is what we want this. So another way I can do this is just to give it a quick snip at some of those fibers, and then that gives me a benchmark of where I can see, and I can then more carefully kind of grab everything out that I want to cut, and then I can look for that cut mark and come in here, hit that, and now I've got my tail up under that prawn. Okay, so now that we have that, we want a little bit of flash. If you think about the carapace of a shrimp or a prawn, there's some iridescence to them. Especially I always think of sand shrimp when I think of this stuff, but we're going to do a pink crystal flash. Just 3 strands to start with, and then you just double it, and we're going to have 6 coming down the top of this. So you want to keep it on top, and you want it to kind of spread across the top fairly evenly. That looks pretty good. So you just want it across there, so it's not one straight line, but it's all kind of just spread out across the top of that. And then we'll just leave that long. I can just trim it to the end of that craft fur slightly. Okay, now we want a little bit of contrast up on top, and with that we're going to use ostrich. So the cerise ostrich, and what I do is take 2 strands of that ostrich, and I'm going to come down one side of this and then the other side of this. So we'll start on your side, and I want that to be about as long as that flash and the craft fur as well, but I'm going to tie it in over here off to the side, just on the far edge of that craft fur. Then 2 strands on my side to match. So get these lined up where we want them. Tie that one in. All right, so now we will clean this up. So this is where a little bit of fun begins. This would probably fish because it'll get wet and you know, lay back in the water, but I want to give it that slightly hardened shell, much like a real shrimp or prawn would have. So I'm going to get my fibers where I want them, and then I'm going to start to give tension. This is where it gets, where you get to control the art a little bit. And my pinch point, if you think about these things having a bit of a horn off the front of them, you want the point of that horn just out in front of the eyes. So what we end up with, if you can see, is you've got a pink stripe on either side of the orange, and you've got just a sprinkling of that flash going up the top there. So I'm just going to hold this in position, keep everything kind of under tension there. And then I'm going to start to put some UV on this. I don't want it down into the body. I just want it up here on this stuff. So this is the craft fur, the flash, and the ostrich. So I'm going to bring that down, let it get into this material. I don't want it to touch my fingertips, because if that's on my fingertips and I hit it with the light, it will burn my fingertips, and I don't like that. So now that it's kind of saturating a bit, I'm going to pull it down onto the body, and I'm going to pull it down in between those eyes and have a nice tight top there. And I'm going to just hold tension on that and then hit it with my light. And as I let go, your back is formed, but the tips of this horn are still loose and give a lot of movement and have the feelers out there. Looks like I left a little bit of craft fur long up here for the tail, so I'll just clean that up. All right, so now you just do your best to clean up your head. Yep. Classic. Well, you get the idea. You know what a nice head looks like, and this is not one of them. So we'll just whip finish and cut our losses here. And then we'll fake it till we make it here. So I'm going to pull all that excess mess off behind the whip finish that just messed up. Trim that close. Then we can coat that up, just to clean it up, seal it in. All right, and that is the prawn Jovi. So you can see we've got that nice separation on top. You've got that nice low profile, and we've got a lot of feelers and movement out front. You've got kickers and legs going underneath the fly. So unweighted, but on a big, strong hook. And yeah, I've caught more kings on this than I have steelhead, but either way, it's a great fly. RIO's Prawn Jovi. I wetted it down with some water so you could kind of get an idea of the profile of it, what it looks like wet. So I think it looks pretty shrimpy. Again, if you like this kind of stuff, if you want to see other flies, if you want to actually see me tie one with a clean head, I could probably do better. I know I can do better. That's pretty rough. But I haven't really done this before on camera, so I'm not feeling too bad about that. All right, well, if you like it, subscribe, sign up, like it, you know, all the drill. So, see ya.